Hypixel Skyblock is of course an incredibly well thought out game. After all, it's Minecraft's most popular server, and easily the most popular game mode within the most popular server. But despite the immense amount of work and effort put into developing the game, have you ever just been playing the game and thought, I mean, this would be way better if they just did this, and it seems relatively simple. Well, in most scenarios, there's probably a relatively simple reason for why they've not done what you think they should, but that's just not the case for everything. There are a ton of items in Hypixel Skyblock with a ton of potential, but because of one small factor in most cases, the item's just not that great. And it doesn't just stop at items. There are so many issues that Skyblock faces that seem to have a very simple fix. And those two things combined are what we're going to be talking about today. But just before we do, if you are planning on purchasing anything from the Hypixel store, make sure to use code NITROS, it gets yourself 5% off. Also, you should subscribe to the channel. If you watch the videos and you haven't subscribed, please make sure to do so. You should also join the Discord server, it's linked in the description of this video. We offer slayers and dungeon carries, so if you need carries or want to carry and make some coins, make sure to join. When short bows were introduced into Hypixel Skyblock, they basically made every other single bow completely and utterly useless. And while sure there are a few exceptions in very niche circumstances, for the most part they basically just buried all of the bows on the game, other than bows that are short bows. Now, a bow such as the Last Breath, if you actually look at its ability, it is really good. But it's not a short bow. It reduces the defense of your target by 10% of their max defense on hit, stacking up to 5 times. The Spider Queen Stinger is another bow that kind of falls under the same bracket. Its ability is really good, but it isn't a short bow. Arrows shot using this bow have an aura around them that deals however much damage to nearby enemies instead of dealing impact damage. Arrows travel through enemies. It's a pretty cool ability, and it will definitely have potential. And once again, the Soul's Rebound probably falls under the same category, with it not being a short bow, but having a pretty interesting and potentially good ability. Your arrows mark enemies you hit for 5 seconds. Marked enemies don't take damage from you. Once the mark expires, the target will receive a burst of damage equal to all the damage dealt during the mark, increased by up to 10%. It's quite clear that anybody uses any of these 3 bows are not using the bow for the bow, they're using the bow for the ability, and I guess that's probably down to the shortcomings of introducing short bows and not either making every single bow a short bow, hence leaving the rest of the bows in the mud. But those 3 bows potentially could be really good, and there's more bows out there that suffer the same fate. So why not just change the whole mechanic of bows in general and make every single bow a short bow? And sure, if they did do that and didn't change anything about any bow at the moment, there would be some balancing issues. So they would need to figure out some fixes for that. But the fact of the matter is, I'd rather go to the weaponsmith and get an artisanal short bow than use any other bow in a regular circumstance, which is silly considering the artisanal short bow is 600 coins from an NPC that anybody can buy. The whole point of introducing short bows in the first place was to make Archer actually playable, actually make it competitive against other classes, which it definitely wasn't prior. Nobody used Archer because it was terrible. But at the moment we have the choice between using a Terminator, and if you're not in Slayer 7 or can't afford a Terminator, then you use a Juju. And if you can't use a Juju for whatever reason, then you use a Spirit Shortbow. Before that you use a Dragon Shortbow, and before that you use an Artisanal. Essentially, for the most part, you've got 2 bows to choose from, and that's the Terminator and the Juju. And it's just, I don't know, it seems a bit silly. Next up, I don't want to talk about an item, I just want to talk about this guy right here. Security Sloth. I guess the NPC that tries to keep your account safe if you were to actually read what he has to say. He basically just warns you about basically being potentially ratted and losing your account. A lot of people don't read what he has to say, and regardless of who says what, hundreds and hundreds of people are still getting ratted every single day, and that is the bottom line. So I've got YouTube rank, and if someone tries to log on my account from anywhere other than my IP address, then they will have to basically go through 2-step verification. Similarly, if I take my computer to anywhere else in the world, I guess, like somewhere else in England or a different country, then when I log on, I have to use the Google Authenticator app on my phone in order to go through 2-step verification. Then I can access my account. Why doesn't everybody have access to this feature? It actually blows my mind. I don't know potentially if it's a matter of cost, or what is preventing Hypixel from implementing this to every profile, or even if they had a requirement to have it, like you have to have a certain amount of active playtime in Hypixel to actually gain access to this feature or something like that. Now, I'm not saying this would 1,000,000% of the time fix the problem, but for the most part, I mean, pretty sure it would. Let me know what you think in the comments. Moving on. The Valkyrie has got to be the most underwhelming weapon in Hypixel Skyblock. For 1,000,000,000 coins in terms of melee damage, you get a weapon that is worse than a giant sword, which is less than 200 mil. The Valkyrie, as with an Estrella, as with a Scylla, is a Necron's Blade. On that Necron's Blade, you can apply 3 scrolls. One of them being Implosion, the next one being With a Shield, and then you've got Shadow Warp. Implosion is basically just the explosive damage aspect of a Necron's Blade. With a Shield is damage reduction and healing, and then we have Shadow Warp, which once again is somewhat close to an explosive damage element. It's kind of hard to explain. However, there's one thing that I can tell you for sure, and none of these scrolls really cater to a melee damage weapon. It would be really cool to see something that actually buffs the Valkyrie or makes it usable. There's already 3 scrolls that you can drop from floor 7, why not make it 4? Or maybe have it so you can only drop this 4th scroll from Master Mode 7. Make it a little bit different. I just every time I look at the Valkyrie, it's a sad weapon for the price. Maybe this hypothetical scroll could play into the Valkyrie's already decent ferocity. Or just anything. I just think it needs to be done. Either that or this weapon just needs a massive buff. It should be the best melee weapon on the game, and I've said it so many times, but it just is nowhere near. Okay, let's talk about Slayers. So we have 5 tiers of Zombie Slayer. We have 4 tiers with a potential 5th of Tarantula, and the same for Wolf. In the time that it's taken to develop a 5th tier of Tarantula and Wolf Slayer, we've already got Enderman Slayer, Blaze Slayer, and then also Vampire Slayer in the Rift. I think you could probably kill a tier 4 Tarantula Slayer on a 20-second old profile, and for a tier 4 Wolf Slayer, you may be able to do it on a 30-second old profile. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw tier 5 Wolf Slayer be introduced when the foraging update is also introduced. But that still could be like the best part of a year's time until we even get the update. We don't really know. But honestly, it is really frustrating. Having a tier 5 Zombie Slayer makes you gain XP 3 times quicker than that of tier 4. Tarantula Slayer is incredibly easy. Let's be realistic. And Sven is so incredibly tedious because you only gain 500 XP per that it just doesn't make any sense. I would have thought that we would have seen tier 5s in the main Slayers before we see anything else, but obviously that's not the case. And the fact that we've had tier 5 Revs for ages, but we don't have tier 5 Wolf or Tarantula is just a little bit confusing if I'm being honest. Anyway, you'll have to let me know in the comments. And honestly, the main thing from this video that I would have thought would be relatively easy to implement, considering they already have implemented it, just not on a larger scale, is having 2-factor authentication on, well, pretty much all accounts logging onto Hypixel, whether that be you need a requirement of hours played on the game or something on those lines. It just makes sense. If you did enjoy today's video, make sure you do leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.
With the